Imagine never forgetting a face, or a femur, from your anatomy textbook days. That's the legend around Andreas Vesalius, part Renaissance wizard, part human Google images, with a lot more blood and a hint of Renaissance swagger. Rumor has it he could name every bone, muscle, and organ on site, then casually sketch the whole body from memory, leaving fellow physicians slack-jawed. Naturally, Renaissance gossip cranked the story up to 11, crediting him with X-ray vision a century before X-rays existed. But let's inhale those formaldehyde-scented facts. No diaries, no eyewitness accounts, and not a single Vesalius remembers all mug on Etsy. The man himself credited his encyclopedic know-how to relentless dissections and obsessive note-taking, not some freakish mental superpower. If photographic memory had been real back then, surely the selfie would have debuted in 1543. Modern psychologists just shrug. True photographic memory is as rare as a polite Renaissance mercenary. So yes, Vesalius was brilliant. But no, he wasn't magic, and probably still lost his car keys sometimes. Moving from Vesalius's reputed mental prowess, we turn to Leonardo da Vinci's mysterious and intense approach to anatomy. Picture Leonardo da Vinci lurking alone, scalpel in hand, turning his Renaissance man cave into a mad scientist's lair. Spooky, right? Mythmakers love to paint Leo as the ultimate antisocial genius, holed up with cadavers under flickering candles, inventing Mona Lisa's mysterious smile between anatomy lessons and body snatching. The reality? Leonardo was less mad scientist, more Renaissance socialite. This wasn't a man dodging parties, he was often the one throwing them. Think less creepy recluse, more Florence's favorite VIP. Far from sketchy back-alley autopsies, Leonardo conducted many of his anatomical studies with the blessing, and sometimes the eager help, of hospitals and universities. Renaissance Italy was fascinated by the human body, and while popping down to the morgue wasn't everyone's espresso run, it certainly didn't come with a social exile wristband. So next time you picture Leo sketching organs by moonlight, try imagining him double-dipping breadsticks at dinner, charming dukes, and turning anatomical drawings from sunlit studios into salon showstoppers. The only thing he really needed to hide was evidence of a snack break. While Da Vinci's anatomical investigations were secretive and artistic, Henry Gray's work was methodical and solitary in producing a definitive anatomy text. Picture a lone Victorian gent, hunched over a flickering candle, furiously doodling skeletons for days on end. Because, surely, that's how Gray's Anatomy was born, right? The legend casts Henry Gray as some caffeine-fueled anatomy wizard, conjuring the entire medical cortex in a book solo. With Gray's name blazing on the cover, who wouldn't imagine his ghost still haunts med libraries, clutching charcoal pencils like a bony Harry Potter? But here's the humorous truth. Gray wasn't flying solo. The unsung hero was Henry Van Dyke Carter, an anatomist-artist mashup who inked nearly 400 illustrations, while Gray wrestled with the Latin names. It was less mad genius, more odd couple science sitcom, Carter obsessively capturing nerve endings in all their glory, while Gray furrowed his brow over terminology with the intensity of a man defusing a bomb. This was a bona fide tag team. Give Gray all the credit, and you might as well trust a surgeon to perform their own open heart. Bold, but not exactly advisable. Without Carter's artistry, Gray's Anatomy would be stick figures and chaos. Is that a femur or a broken broomstick? So yes, it took 2 Henrys and a mountain of candle wax to rewrite medical history. Gray's comprehensive efforts eventually built upon centuries of anatomical knowledge dating back to Galen's once unchallenged teachings. Was Galen humanity's ultimate medical know-it-all, or just an ancient charmer with a talent for confidently winging it? Legend has it Galen, doctor to emperors and hypochondriacs alike, cracked every bodily mystery so future physicians could kick back and take notes. But picture this, your entire grasp of human anatomy based on poking around Barbary apes. Sorry, Planet of the Humans hadn't aired yet. Galen's bestsellers boasted gems like invisible heart pores, the infamous 4 humors, and the bold claim that the liver was the body's ultimate smoothie blender for blood. Apparently, he'd never bumped into a spleen. Challenging Galen wasn't a casual debate. It was an Olympic sport in avoiding exile for blasphemy. Even medieval med students raised an eyebrow now and then. But tradition trumped truth. Thanks to the printing press delay, Galen's word reigned supreme, while smarter folks muttered, "Wait, that can't be right." It wasn't until Vesalius and his anatomical crew crashed the party that the Galen gospel finally loosened its grip, and med students everywhere learned pig guts weren't the final chapter in human anatomy. Although Galen dominated anatomical thought, the roots of dissection and anatomical study began much earlier with pioneers like Herophilus. Imagine a world where opening bodies for science was a bigger taboo than pineapple on pizza. In ancient Greece, curiosity about the human body usually earned you a stern lecture, not a lab coat and a scalpel. Dissecting a body, that was considered sacrilegious, right up there with messing around with grandma's soup recipe. Simply just not done. Enter Herophilus of Chalcedon, circa 300 BCE, the original anatomy rebel who deliberately dissected human corpses, not because of some bizarre chariot accident, but on purpose. While others shrank from the task, treating corpses like haunted treasure chests, Herophilus saw an all-access backstage pass to the human machine. His medical peers, too superstitious or faint-hearted to even touch a toe, mention the word spleen, and you'd probably get a faint or two. Teaming up with his equally gutsy pal Erasistratus in Alexandria, aka the Las Vegas of ancient science, Herophilus took meticulous notes on organs, nerves, and vessels. Before him, most facts came from dissecting animals, which is only helpful if your main patients are goats. His daring approach cracked open the door for centuries of anatomical knowledge, though he never lived to see TV doctors making surgery look even messier. So next time someone snubs your pizza topping choice, remind them, true innovation starts by breaking taboos, and sometimes by opening a few bodies. Despite Herophilus's groundbreaking dissections, social barriers such as the exclusion of women from anatomy persisted for centuries. Imagine a world where women could dissect a soufflé, but not a cadaver. Oui, being intrigued by delicate pastry layers? Très chic. But dare to peek beneath human skin? Scandalous, on par with flashing an ankle in Victorian England. Despite Hollywood's insistence, women haven't always been barred from anatomy. In ancient Egypt and medieval Islamic societies, women not only stitched wounds but also sewed together their reputations as skilled healers. Step into a Renaissance European university, though, and you'd find the intellectual equivalent of a no girls allowed treehouse, often guarded by actual laws. Still, trailblazers like St. Hildegard of Bingen and Trota of Salerno slipped in through side doors, bringing medical smarts along. Others took to secret dissections, donning disguises straight out of a Shakespearean farce. By the 19th century, the gates finally creaked open, albeit with a lot of grumbling. Today, women rule anatomy labs, slicing through more than soufflés and tipping the scales after centuries of being off the list. Compounded by gender restrictions, access to cadavers for dissection was also far from easy or legal in many periods. You know those old-timey anatomists, just waltzing into graveyards like they're grabbing a baguette? Popular legend paints Renaissance dissectors as fearless body snatchers, confidently brandishing scalpels in one hand and shovels in the other. If only! The truth was more of a bureaucratic chess game, with more paperwork, whispered deals in shadowy alleys, and cold, hard bribes than a season of political thrillers. Legal dissections were mostly reserved for executed criminals, whose unfortunate posthumous careers often ended up as less than stellar classroom models. With the law breathing down their necks and bodies in scarce supply, the door swung open for resurrectionists, the original graveyard shift workers. Anatomy finals weren't multiple choice. They were multiple felony charges. So next time you grumble about ethics review boards, remember, today you need a signature. Back then, you needed a lookout, a fast horse, and nerves of steel. Even when bodies were accessible, mastering anatomy demanded intense memorization of complex terminology. Picture ancient anatomy students hunched over dusty scrolls, muttering sternocleidomastoid like it's a magic spell to ward off failing grades. The common myth: mastering anatomy means cramming Latin names until your brain sounds like an asthmatic bagpipe. Legendary anatomists, Galen, Vesalius, Da Vinci, are often pictured as toga-clad encyclopedias, effortlessly reciting muscle groups like you recite your Wi-Fi password. But here's the plot twist. Those impressive, tongue-tangling names? They're just a Renaissance-era filing system. Deltoid might sound like a Greek demigod, but it's really just shoulder blob in lab slang. True anatomical mastery means understanding how everything connects, moves, and works, fueled by curiosity, sharp observation, and a dash of healthy skepticism. If memorization were the key, spelling bee champs would be running hospitals. Instead, it's the students who ask, "Why does this muscle do that?" who truly get to the heart, and liver, and spleen of the matter. So when studying anatomy, remember, curiosity builds doctors, not a perfectly recited head-to-toe shopping list. Such dedication to memorization often fueled the stereotype of anatomy legends as reclusive and socially withdrawn. Picture anatomy legends not as shadowy loners whispering muscle names to their reflections, but as lively social butterflies with lively Latin banter. The biggest myth? That these pioneers were friendless oddballs, perpetually hunched over cadavers, accompanied only by the faint aroma of formaldehyde and their own muttering in Latin. Hollywood's favorite trope: mad scientists or reclusive hermits, allergic to both sunlight and small talk. But hold on to your scalpel. Many early anatomists were downright gregarious. They networked like pros, shook hands, preferably scrubbed, and kept bustling social calendars. Andreas Vesalius famously hosted anatomy parties. Real live guests, music, maybe even some dancing femurs. Not just a lonely parade of bones. Turns out, mapping the human elbow required a village, and a couple of surgeons with good gossip. Academic debates? Electric. Classrooms? A buzz like a beehive of brains. Their true obsession? Advancing science with people, not just dissecting spleens. Who knew 16th century anatomists might have racked up more RSVPs than your entire group chat? Their secretive tendencies coincide with the widespread illegality and taboo surrounding dissection in many eras. Imagine trying to learn anatomy from a potato because slicing open actual bodies was as welcome as a sword fight at a tea party. In medieval Europe, the very word dissection could send folks sprinting straight to the nearest monastery, or at least gulping down a strong cup of ale. The myth goes that dissection was forbidden everywhere, always. Doctors supposedly relied on guesswork, wild imagination, and maybe the occasional lucky chicken wishbone. But here's where reality pokes through the skin. While some places flipped out over the slightest scalpel scratch, others embraced a bit of peekaboo biology, allowing dissections for science. The ancient Egyptians, Greeks, and Romans often cut to the chase. Literally. Meanwhile, the medieval Islamic world was making cutting-edge progress with cadaver studies, while Europe tiptoed through loopholes and secret midnight sessions until the Renaissance finally sharpened curiosity. Let's face it, rules about dissection were as patchy as medieval roadmaps. As one early anatomist quipped, "It's not illegal if nobody catches you with the scalpel." Makes you wonder what other forbidden discoveries happened after hours. These prohibitions fed rumors that only the most morbid or sadistic individuals dared to engage in dissection. Was the early anatomist the original mad scientist, gleefully elbow-deep in gore? Hollywood sure paints that picture. Pale fellows lurking in candlelit basements, cackling over corpses like supervillains in training. Legend has it these dissecting docs loved their work a tad too much. Less scientist, more Bond villain with a scalpel. The reality? Not quite. Being an anatomist wasn't about a passion for guts, but a commitment to pouring your own guts into research. Most actually recoiled at the smell. Many risked social exile and even jail just to crack open a body, all in a desperate quest for knowledge, and occasionally limbs. Getting a leg up on the competition was often literal. Grave robbing wasn't a bonus round. It was a grim necessity, thanks to a chronic body shortage. Personal letters reveal more queasiness and nerves than maniacal delight. Turns out, dissecting cadavers is nowhere near as fun as Netflix would have you believe. And those public dissections? Picture a dry science lecture, not grand guignol theatrics. The aim was understanding, not horror. The real legacy being modern medicine. Let's chalk up the villainy to overactive imaginations, not historical fact. However, by the 18th century, the sense that nothing new remained to be discovered challenged these gruesome assumptions. Picture this: 18th century anatomy teachers, chest puffed out, declaring, "Everything important in the body has been found. Class dismissed. Let's all knock off early." Yes, back then, European anatomists strutted like they'd just finished the ultimate treasure hunt, checked every box, and were ready to take up knitting. Textbooks smugly claimed that all the big anatomical mysteries were solved. A bit awkward for future med students counting on some job security. The consensus? Only trivial squabbles remained, like whether the appendix was just a passive-aggressive organ playing hard to get. How did we land in this overconfident bubble? Credit the booming egos of Vesalius and Harvey. Their breakthroughs had everyone blissfully complacent. Medical students dutifully memorized heaps of Latin, firmly believing anatomy is finished was a foolproof life plan. Spoiler alert, those brave souls clearly never tried finding their car keys in their own pockets. Because, plot twist, the 19th and 20th centuries would unveil bacteria, new organs, and DNA, prompting centuries' worth of collective facepalming. But for that one golden enlightenment moment, everything seemed mapped out. Except, of course, the surprises still hiding inside us. In an era of diminishing discoveries, anatomy legends found themselves working in isolation, believing collaboration was unnecessary. Ever imagine a genius anatomist, a wild-eyed loner, lurking in a candlelit chamber, scalpel poised, shunning society for the love of guts and glory? Pop culture loves this cliché, the solitary seeker, poking at body parts in pursuit of forbidden knowledge. The myth goes deep. Collaboration dilutes genius. Real breakthroughs blossom only in splendid isolation. But let's carve open the truth. Most historic anatomists hit the big time thanks to teamwork. Vesalius had artist sidekicks sketching as he dissected. Da Vinci swapped notes with doctors until he'd filled more notebooks than a modern med student crams textbooks. The real magic brewed in universities, guilds, even salons, definitely not dank basements, unless you call bad lighting mood innovation. Anatomists weren't shy about sharing discoveries. Sometimes it was pure ego, sometimes science. Ideas bounced around cliques faster than rumors at a Renaissance dinner party. Had those geniuses truly flown solo, we'd still believe the funny bone was just the part of your elbow that squeaks. This solitary tradition has contributed to the notion that modern anatomy legends are extinct, relics of the past. Think anatomy legends are just dried-up tales fit for dusty tombs? Think again. Pop culture loves to picture famous anatomists as creaky old men hunched over parchment by candlelight, brewing potions, and maybe consulting a pet raven for a second opinion. The myth? That these legends are relics locked away somewhere between the mummy room and the villain's lair in your favorite history book. Reality check. Modern anatomy legends are anything but extinct. Forget powdered wigs. Today's maestros wield Wi-Fi and strong coffee, not feather quills. They're cracking codes with virtual dissection tables instead of chisels, flexing 3D holograms that make old textbooks look like rotary phones. Take Dr. Claudia Krebs, slicing through med-ed barriers with her digital cadaver explorations. Or Dr. Paul Ria, inspiring students with virtual labs, no pickled frogs required. Today's anatomy rock stars live-stream lectures and flood the feed with Changsh Medlife, proving the only thing embalmed these days is last week's cafeteria sushi. Safe to say, these trailblazers are making history in anatomy, one epic swipe, tap, and TED Talk at a time. Meanwhile, anatomical illustrators were often seen as mere assistants rather than visionary contributors to science's progression. Picture yourself hunched over parchment, ink-stained and underappreciated, while Leonardo soaks up all the glory. Fun, right? Being an anatomical illustrator in the Renaissance wasn't draw me like one of your French girls, but more like, please try not to faint at the sight of organs. Popular myth casts you as a docile hand, obediently scribbling down whatever some genius whispered. No room for your own ideas or, a gag reflex. History wasn't much kinder. Real discoveries got filed under star names. Beyoncé, meet your inner backup singer. But here's the juicy part. Illustrators weren't human photocopiers. They wrestled with confusing notes, cross-checked dissections, and often spotted mistakes the bigwigs missed. Vesalius's iconic skeletons? More visionary group projects than solo masterpieces. Their creativity wasn't just window dressing, it rewrote science. Today's MRI scans and textbook organs owe everything to these unsung heroes, who were rocking dauber body goals centuries before Instagram. So next time you ace your anatomy quiz, tip your hat to those ink-stained visionaries, the original visual storytellers of science. Ultimately, becoming an anatomy legend requires such intense obsession that only the truly dedicated thrive. Imagine a party where everyone's idea of fun is dissecting frogs instead of dishing on Netflix dramas. Welcome to the wild world of anatomists, where cocktail chatter isn't "seen the latest series," but "did you know the pancreas looks like a sad comma?" The myth? Only eccentric geniuses like Da Vinci or Vesalius become anatomy legends, toiling through sleepless, candlelit nights with notebooks that resemble anatomical tinder, swiping right on the spleen, left on the appendix. Here's the truth. Passion helps, but you don't need to be a monomaniacal savant or have formaldehyde pumping through your veins. The greats were passionate, yes, but also curious collaborators and, mostly, quite normal. Thanks to teamwork, tech, and teaching, you can excel without grave robbing or midnight musings. Perseverance and good mentors matter, as does being just a little okay with the faint aroma of preservatives. The moral? You don't need to shun daylight or amass a bone collection. Anatomy greatness is for the brave, not just the bonkers. Curious? Let's unravel what it takes to join the Anatomy Hall of Fame.